Zack Psioda with the HVAC Shop Talk podcast here, sitting in my garage on the creakiest chair in the world. Okay, so it doesn't creak right now. That's a great way to make me look stupid. Today I want to talk a little bit about these are called different things in different parts of the country. You call them helpers, apprentices, gopher, whatever you want to call him or her. The relationship with that person, boy or girl, with their boss, crew leader, journeyman, whatever you want to call that person. Basically, you have a higher up and a lower down, and you're on a job, and you have to get the work done. And I want to talk a little bit about that relationship and how I think it should work based on all the dysfunction that I've been part of in the last quarter century doing HVAC. My experience is a little different because I work with family a lot of the time. Sure, I had other people working at my father's business, but most of those would have been underneath me because by the time we were hiring other employees, I had gone up. At the very least, we were on equal level. I was never a subordinate for any of those people. I was only a subordinate to family, which is an interesting sort of dynamic because no matter who's on top or who's below in the family area, there's always going to be squabbles. And that's one of the things I really got into, especially with my brother. We fought like cats and dogs for the longest time. He was my superior. I was inferior. At least I was in his eyes. And we always argued all the time. And I began to realize there's some dynamic tech tips for that particular dynamic that I think I could give out to help you guys out, especially when you're coming up through the ranks. I think the first tip that I would give someone that's in an apprenticeship or gopher or helper role is just to kind of be quiet and listen. And that sounds a little bit condescending, but if you think about it, you need to know enough to know that you don't know anything. And what I mean by that is I've seen a lot of cases, myself included, that I felt like I knew it all. And I would argue my points only to find out that I didn't know jack. And I really needed to just keep my mouth shut and watch what was going on and listen to what I needed to do. Now, a lot of guys, they do that. But there's some of us out there, hard-headed people, like, whatever. And you think you read a book or something like that, or you do one job and all of a sudden you're the king of HVAC and you understand everything about it. And it's just not the case. Even though to someone like myself or some of you maybe, you might really feel like that, especially if you've had a few jobs under your belt. Maybe you've done a few service calls depending on what part of the industry you're in. You could be an installer, you could be a new service tech, something like that. You need to know enough to know that if you live dangerously like that and you put yourself out there thinking that you're the biggest and baddest thing that ever graced the HVAC landscape, that eventually you're going to get humbled. And when someone like that gets humbled, people cheer. And you don't want to be cheered for in that way. You guys know what I'm talking about. You ever notice somebody that you might call a pain in the butt or we won't say it, a dick at work, and you just can't wait till they either get fired or yelled at or whatever? You don't want to be that guy. Because there's one thing about being a know-it-all is that if you are a know-it-all, why do you have any urge to pursue any more knowledge? If you know it all, there's no reason to pursue knowledge any longer. And that seems like an awful boring way to live because I don't know about you guys, but if I had all the knowledge that existed, I'd be pretty bored because there'd be nowhere to learn and to grow. That's maybe a little bit too existential. I don't know if it is or not, guys, but I'm going to tell you this. I learned this in the field that, just be quiet, study, ask questions when appropriate. That doesn't mean ask questions all the live long day.
Mama! Mama! Ma! Ma!
Ask them at the appropriate times. Maybe you're sitting down to lunch. Maybe you're wrapping up for the day and you have a few questions that you'd accrued during the day that you can't, or maybe your textbooks have said something that you didn't quite understand and you wanted some human explanation. Find those right times to ask those questions because it's not going to be constantly all day, because if you do have a boss or a journeyman that you're working underneath, you're going to want to let them do their thing because their job can be stressful, and a lot of their job, aspects of the job, you don't know anything about because you haven't reached that level yet. So just know that you don't know yet. Try to get as much knowledge as possible. Make sure you're getting that technical knowledge. depending on what your particular goals are, you could be studying other stuff too. We won't talk about that, like business goals or sales goals or whatever. We're just talking about making sure you're doing a good job, doing the right stuff, and ask those questions. But just like any other human situation, you ever seen a person ask a question at the complete wrong time when someone's frazzled and busy or something like that? Don't be that guy. Try to gauge when the proper time to communicate is, and depending on your journeyman, you may have to be a little bit more sensitive because some of them are more sensitive as far as answering questions. Some of them might not answer your questions at all. So you might have to find somebody else, a friend, another colleague, another company, whatever. Someone at the supply house counter to ask questions to. Study. You can always ask questions to me. I was in the business for a long, long time. We all forget because it's been a couple years since I was really active in the field. But for about 25 years, I've been involved with the HVAC business. I owned a company for almost 10 years, so I have that experience there. I was a service tech for myself and for my father previous to that. I installed for a long, long time. Install. Never going back, bro. Never going back. But I did get a lot of helpful knowledge, especially on the design side, by doing install. That is something that comes in very handy. If you do install and you have done service and you combine those talents, it really is a good thing. And we'll talk about that more in the future too, how being a service tech and installer will allow you to think about the other guy while you're doing your jobs. So I'm going to wrap it up. Just want to do a short little vlog here, guys. Hope you're having a good time. The live shows will be back real soon. Just need to take a break. Needed to sort out some stuff, and I'll let you in on that pretty soon, guys. But I hope you enjoy these little vlogs, these little tips. And if you have any comments, maybe you disagree, maybe you agree, want to tell me how great I am. That's fine too. Maybe you want to tell me how wrong I am. I want to hear you, especially you, wrong guy who thinks I'm wrong. I like you the best, especially when you write colorful comments. I like that. So I'll see you guys on the next one.